You just came out of a shop to see what's going on. You got detained.
I was pushed into a police truck. They told me either you go with us for 15 days or we beat your legs and let you go. The fact that I'm here now, it's clear what I chose.
The call for Alexander Lukashenko to step down resonates around Belarus. After a violent crackdown, this is what the president is facing. More people on the streets and growing anger about the thousands detained and excessive violence used. Olga Poklonskaya, a columnist for a state-owned newspaper, is still looking for her 21-year-old son, Ilya, detained with his friend on Monday evening.
My son is a student at the law department. He's not an alcoholic nor a drug addict. I don't want our boys to be beaten. They are the future of our country. It's barbaric in the 21st century. If they don't stop, I will burn myself. I am ready to go on a hunger strike.
Around the country, factory workers have started to join the protest. At a large state-owned lorry factory, hundreds announced a strike, demanding new elections. Former servicemen are throwing away their uniforms out of shame for what government troops have done to their own people. A serving police officer fled the country after he recorded a statement saying he won't follow what he calls criminal orders to use violence any longer. European and US ambassadors in Minsk laid flowers at the square where one of the protesters was killed.
We call on the authorities to allow peaceful protests for all and to release all those who have exercised this right.
While the protests are swelling, police have stayed away. Many Belarusians have overcome their fears.
We want our country to develop and not to stay at a dead end.
We'll stay here until our dictator is overthrown and happiness comes to our country.
More and more Belarusians are joining these spontaneous protests. After they were beaten and chased off the streets at night, they're now protesting during the day. A new strategy that seems to confuse the authorities.
While Lukashenko might have been able to silence Belarusians for many years, this time they're determined to have their stolen voices returned to them.
Well, Steph has also been covering the latest protests in the capital, Minsk, and she sent us this update.
Peaceful protest, that's exactly what's happening here right at the Independence Square in Minsk, and the crowds are swelling here by the minute. This all started because workers from a tractor factory in the outskirts of Minsk left their factory when they were on strike, marched through the city center and then asked others to join in, which they did. So they ended up here, which initially led to quite a tense situation because they were marching towards the building. Then suddenly military police came out, so people were really scared what they were going to do. But then very surprisingly, these soldiers put down their shields, which led to very emotional scenes with women hugging them and people really crying, because you have to remember, of course, that many here have been living under authoritarian rule for more than 2 decades. So where this is going to lead, nobody knows, but it's getting bigger and bigger. Many here at the square consider Svetlana Tikhanovskaya as the new president, and Tikhanovskaya herself has now offered the government to have a dialogue about this transitional government, as she says, because she considers herself a winner with 60 to 70% of the vote. But so far, Lukashenko has not responded to this offer.
Neighbouring Lithuania says it might welcome Belarusians as refugees and humanitarian grounds. Earlier, its Foreign Minister Linas Likavinkius spoke to Al Jazeera, and he said there needs to be collective action to create political dialogue in Belarus.
We decided to step in since very beginning. Basically, we cannot make much influence to the events in the neighborhood, but since it's neighborhood, we cannot stay indifferent, and that's always this dialogue with the neighbors very complicated. I would say our approach also quite selective. There are segments where we can find added value and progress, and there are issues where we can disagree, and now we see this crisis. And crisis was because of the actions of authorities, and they are already beyond any borders, because if there are violations of human rights, brutality, cruelty, and possibly even crime committed against the civilian population, that's something we cannot stay silent. We are demanding very simple things: to release those detained, also to stop violence, and to start, sounds quite weird, but to start the dialogue with own people, own citizens. They need not much. By the way, they were not aggressive. They were not smashing windows or burning cars. But the force used against them was really extraordinary. And that would remain some traces in the future. That's definitely very difficult. So we have no intention whatsoever or willingness or right to intervene into the domestic affairs of that country. But what we are talking here has no borders and really deserves our attention. And at the same time, it's happening in Europe, in our continent. And that's why we discussed this issue also today between our foreign ministers of European Union having this extraordinary meeting. It's not just Lithuania prepared to go, we have to go collectively, international community, European Union. So therefore, we prefer actions, collective actions, and here we about to prepare possible targeted individual measures against those responsible for electoral fraud and also for this excessive use of force. So one point. Also, we discussed the opportunity to establish special fund for victims of oppressions. This also could be not just moral backup, but kind of also maybe some financial support to those who suffered because of these oppressions and brutality. So we discussed very concrete measures, not just assessing situation and treating these elections as non-free and non-democratic, but also it's not enough. We have to review our relations with that country.
Well, the situation in Belarus was the main topic at a meeting of EU foreign ministers. In a forum more on that, let's speak to Niamh Barker, who's live for us in London. Niamh, one gets the impression there is a growing external pressure on the government in Belarus. What was happening at the meeting there?
Well, the meeting of EU foreign ministers happened remotely. They all dialed into a central hub in Brussels and basically shared their ideas on how to pile the pressure on Alexander Lukashenko. There's no shortage of solidarity for the Belarusian people and no shortage of criticism and condemnation for Alexander Lukashenko. According to a spokesperson for the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel was shocked having seen scenes of violence on the streets of Minsk and other cities over the course of the past few days. And also Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, said that there had been a brutal violation of human rights that warranted immediate sanctions. And sanctions does appear to be the direction of travel the EU foreign ministers together in a unified way are prepared to take. They could take the form of asset freezes or travel bans on senior figures within Lukashenko's leadership. We could well see other forms of punitive measures being imposed, but let's not forget the EU has already imposed a raft of sanctions on the country, already imposed restrictions on certain officials. We know that an arms embargo has been in place for some time now, so the EU is also under pressure to see exactly what it can do to force Alexander Lukashenko into line. We've had Poland, we've had the Baltic states already come forth and volunteer as mediators in any forthcoming dialogue between Lukashenko and the opposition. The opposition have welcomed that, but Lukashenko is far from it. He remains defiant. So the role now for the EU is to pile on the pressure and to try and open a corridor of communication.
Niamh, thanks very much. That's Niamh Barker in London. Russia's general prosecutor says 33 of its nationals who were detained in Belarus have been released and sent home. They were arrested in Minsk last month. President Alexander Lukashenko accused them of being mercenaries sent by Moscow to incite riots, something Russia denies. And plenty more ahead on the news hour, including fears that Beirut's hospitals are running out of medicines after last week's port blast. We report from a damaged child cancer treatment center. And the sisters sizing each other up ahead of the US Open. We'll tell you which Williams came out on top later in sport. Okay, the U.S. Department of Justice says it seized Iranian fuel from 4 tankers headed to Venezuela. Now, it's claiming it's the biggest ever such seizure. Both Iran and Venezuela are under U.S. sanctions. Well, let's go straight to Alan Fisher, who's live for us in Washington, D.C. What more is the Department of Justice saying about this incident, Alan?
Well, we've been trying to patch together exactly what the story is here. It appears that the US was aware of a convoy of 7 ships, 3 of them state ships, 4 that had been hired for the occasion. They were on their way to Venezuela. According to the US, they were carrying oil in breach of international sanctions. They then approached a judge here in Washington, D.C. on the 2nd of July with a seizure order saying that they wanted to seize 4 of the vessels. The judge gave permission of that, and so the Bella, the Bering, the Panday and the Luna were seized. They're currently on their way to Houston in Texas. We are told by the Justice Department that there was not a military action or a naval offensive in any way. The ships are now, as I say, on their way to Texas. They were carrying 1.16 million barrels of oil, according to the US Justice Department. Interestingly enough, Donald Trump has talked about this just in the last few moments. He has been in the briefing room to give his daily update on the COVID crisis, but he was asked about the ships, and he said this is something that Iran should not be doing, so they seized the vessels.
The Department of Justice and obviously the Trump administration fairly determined that this fuel was from Iran, but I understand that Iran is denying that the oil has anything to do with them.
That's exactly right. The whole idea of interdicting these ships is to stop Venezuela getting oil, but also to stop Iran making any money out of oil exports. You know, this is part of the United States administration policy of maximum pressure on the Iranian government. But the Iranian ambassador in Venezuela has been speaking in the last few hours, and he says, look, these weren't our ships. We weren't sending oil to Venezuela. The reason we were doing it, this is not something that we were doing. The Venezuelans have got their refineries up and running.
No, por ahora no tenemos.
No, right now there's nothing planned because we haven't had a request from our Venezuelan friends as they are reactivating their own refineries. U.S. officials are experts in fabricating lies and carrying out shows in the media. I ask you, who is the bigger victim of terrorism, the U.S. or Iran?
Now, what would have been in the seizure order is the US government making the case that this shipment was organised by someone with links to the Revolutionary Guard, which, of course, the United States has designated as a terrorist organisation. So they're saying that they don't want them to get money from this shipment. Now, that's an interesting case that they're putting forward, and the seizure of this ship isn't where this ends. The US government has still got to go back to court and make its case before it's able to keep both the 1.16 million barrels of oil that it seized and the 4 vessels.
That's Alan Fisher talking to us from Washington, D.C. Alan, thanks very much. Turkey's president is threatening to suspend ties with the United Arab Emirates after it reached a deal with Israel to normalize relations. As part of the US brokered agreement, Israel will suspend, but not scrap, plans to annex Palestinian territory. Egypt, Oman and Bahrain have welcomed the move. Palestinians say it's a betrayal to their cause, and they've been protesting against the deal in occupied East Jerusalem. They gathered in the courtyard of the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound after Friday prayers. Some trampled on pictures of Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed and the Emirati flag. Harry Fawcett is in West Jerusalem with reaction and more on that protest at Al-Aqsa Mosque.
There was an expression of anger and repudiation of the UAE's part in carrying out this deal with Israel, which obviously is something that goes in contravention of the hitherto adhered to, at least publicly, if not in the background, policy of having a resolution in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict before normalization with other Arab states. There was this protest at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. There was a smaller protest as well in Hebron, in the south of the occupied West Bank. But the real pushback even come from the Palestinian leadership itself. They're saying that this is a betrayal. This is a stab in the back of Palestinians, according to some senior officials. And they say that the UAE should never have gone along with this. From the UAE perspective, what they're saying is that they have acted in a way which has rescued the occupied West Bank from the threat of imminent annexation of at least 30% of it, and that is the prize that they have won from Israel. That's seen very differently, of course, in Ramallah, which is where the Palestinian leadership is headquartered. They see this as Israel gaining something very valuable merely for not having done anything, not having sacrificed any land, not having given any major concessions at all to the Palestinians.
Angola's top court has sentenced the son of former President José Eduardo dos Santos to 5 years in prison. José Filomeno dos Santos has been found guilty of embezzlement and fraud. He had been in charge of Angola's $5 billion sovereign wealth fund during his father's rule. The verdict was linked to a $500 million transfer that had been made to an overseas account in 2017. Well, dos Santos is just one of several prominent Angolans now facing scrutiny, including his sister. Billionaire Isabel dos Santos has been accused of widespread corruption. On Tuesday, she stepped down from the board of Angola's largest mobile phone operator, citing a climate of permanent conflict. She's often described as the wealthiest woman in Africa. Angola's government confiscated her assets last year, accusing her of steering $1 billion to companies where she and her husband held stakes. Dos Santos' personal accounts and those of the firms she owns in Portugal were frozen in February. A Portuguese newspaper said she owed more than $615 million to 13 banks. But Dos Santos insists she's repaid the bulk of her loans. Joseph Oceano is a political analyst and former columnist at the New Africa magazine. He says the sentencing shows the president's commitment to fighting corruption.
The pressure is huge from the global friends of Angola. Angola is substantially the second largest oil producer on the African continent, and a country that is generally rather poor and rather do very well. They need money. But to say that actually it's about pressure from our side is also perhaps to be unfair to the authorities in there. That is Angola is not only corrupt, not only the one who's corrupt on Africa, many others are. I think this is a move ahead. They need to change, but I think this is something which is rather exemplary. It's not uncommon on the continent to have leaders and their brethren and their children, to be the wealth owners. The head of Operation, so-called Operation Wealth Creation in my own native Uganda is a brother to a president, somebody who was, hardly owner of a penny just 10, 20, 30 years ago. So I think the president realizes they need to be able to do this on behalf and in the interest of the Angolan people.
Mozambique's president has visited the northern province of Cabo Delgado days after fighters linked to ISIL seized a key port town there. Filipe Nyusi vowed to create jobs in an effort to prevent youth from joining them. Mozambique's army is still trying to regain control for the gas-rich area, which has been seized by armed groups 3 times this year. Haru Mutasa has more from Harare in neighbouring Zimbabwe.
In May, regional leaders met here in Harare to discuss the crisis in Mozambique. But after hours of talking, there was no concrete agreement on what the region can and should do to assist Mozambique. Leaders will meet again on Monday, and political analysts say this time they're under increasing pressure to actually do something.
One of the expectations that one would have seen from our leadership now is a strong, high-level fact-finding mission that would have been sent to Mozambique. And this is a mix of intelligence, military intelligence, political economy analysts, and humanitarian experts to try and establish the extent and the gravity of the situation in Cabo Delgado and northern Mozambique.
Mozambique's President Filipe Nyusi visited the area affected by the violence, and he promised to do more to assist people there. There's speculation some other countries in southern Africa could send in troops to assist Mozambique's army. It's happened before in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Lesotho and in Mozambique back when Renamo fighters were causing problems there. Mozambique's government says fighters affiliated to ISIL are responsible for the violence. The area in northern Mozambique is rich in natural gas, and some projects are worth more than $60 billion. There's a concern that the fighting could spill over into other countries in the region, similar to what's been seen currently on the continent in the Sahel region and the Horn of Africa.
Authorities in Afghanistan have started releasing 400 Taliban prisoners, paving the way for long-delayed talks with the armed group. 80 were freed on Thursday. The release of the so-called hardcore prisoners was approved last weekend by Afghanistan's Grand Assembly, or Loya Jirga. It's seen as the final hurdle to launching negotiations.
I was detained here for kidnapping and served almost 8 years of my prison sentence. I call on my leaders and the President to embrace permanent ceasefire and stop the bloodshed so that we all have peaceful lives. The lives of our youth have been miserable due to war and their future looks bleak too. Let them study and make a good life.
Thai police have arrested a prominent student leader amid a growing protest movement calling for political reforms. Parit Shiwarak, also known as Penguin, appeared defiant as he was escorted into the police station. The 22-year-old is accused of sedition, assault and breaking coronavirus restrictions during a rally last month. 2 other protest organizers were arrested last week on similar charges. 1,000 students at one of Thailand's most prestigious universities defied a ban to show support for Shiwarak. The school says it allows non-violent political gatherings, but insists it wasn't given enough notice to ensure safety. Students across Thailand have been protesting since mid-July, calling for a new constitution and changes to laws that shield the powerful monarchy.
When people's voice be ignored, when activists being harassed by the authority, when enlarged disappearances, when the government siding with the capitalists and leaving the rest of the people to suffer, with the law not being applied to the beliefs, we ask the people.
Senior as his hearse passed by the presidential office. A formal state memorial will be held at a later date. Lee ended autocratic rule and pushed for Taiwan's independence from China while he was president between 1988 and 2000. He died last month at the age of 97. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in has promised to highlight the plight of the last surviving women from his country who were forced to work in Japanese brothels during World War II. His recorded remarks were part of a ceremony held in the city of Sionan. It's the 3rd year the memorial's been held to remember the victims who were called comfort women by their captors. The issue continues to be a problem between South Korea and Japan. Brock McBride has more from Seoul.
The location of the Japanese embassy in Seoul is also the site of a permanent protest against Japan's wartime atrocities. Protesters accuse the Japanese of still not properly atoning for the treatment of so-called comfort women, taken from Korea to work in Imperial Army brothels during World War II. Other sporadic protests here epitomize the troubled relations between the two neighbors, such as this campaign to boycott Japanese goods. That followed a long-running court battle to force Japanese companies to compensate the Korean victims of wartime forced labor.
This goes against international norms. In that case, we have no choice but to respond. So we should handle this to avoid that happening.
Japan did respond, imposing trade restrictions that damaged South Korea's high-tech manufacturing, despite appeals from Seoul.
We hope the Japanese government would more actively and sincerely respond to our ongoing efforts to resolve this issue through diplomatic channels.
This deep-rooted animosity has even affected the handling of the coronavirus, with Japan accused of imposing unnecessarily harsh restrictions on South Korean travelers. While clearly hurting both countries, neither seems able to hold back from taking a swipe when national pride is at stake. The latest spat, this monument to the comfort women, built in a botanic garden, with the man bowing in apology, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
People say it is Abe, but this artwork doesn't refer to Abe at all. If that person is Abe, then that would be good.
Despite Japan's insistence that wartime grievances were settled years ago, many South Koreans say they're still waiting for that Japanese apology.
So I want us to have more of the conversation about you growing up when we get to the farm.
Yes.
Because I know that you're a farmer at heart. That's where home is for you. And I think being in that space will bring the memories back.
I think the interaction was within the family, within the community,
and you are not going to cities that time. So your life was essentially from that community that you grew up in, village, you went to the local schools, and the interaction was between the school, the farm, and the community. And discipline was not just for the parent or for the, it was every adult in the community had the right to discipline every other child. So the child was actually community's child. So I dropped all those subjects altogether and went for anthropology.
Anthropology?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was a new subject at the university. It was just introduced that year. So there was that department of anthropology that was introduced. I went and looked at what the course looked like. And I told myself, you know what, working with the communities and looked interesting, and the subjects really related to your interaction, because anthropology is really the study of man in a social and physical environment.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, this week I've been traumatized. Yeah, I've been traumatized. I was watching Professor Akela Akpasoya's interview with Samens on Footprints. I was listening actually on radio, and then he said that at age 23, he was a lecturer at the University of Dar es Salaam. 23, 2 and 3. I said, what is happening in this world? Because by the time we were living in Legon, there were 35-year-olds who were petting in... It's okay. You know, they were petting... 23, that means he had a staff bungalow. He had some nice ride there. Tell everybody, hey, I'm afraid you're winning, Bayo. That thing just confused me. I started questioning my whole life. Like, what was I doing with my life? Like, 23, he was a lecturer. Like, I was just thinking about it. Then, my dream one, I shared it on Facebook. Then my friend Akable, he said, his senior brother is doing about town. I say, hey, she was so trying to say, oh, Panch, say, no, like joke about town. We are touching lives, Hey, but lecturer at 23. Oh, while I was still thinking about it, Dr. Jemima Nunu came to say, oh, it's not a big thing, Bia, because she, at 22.5 years old, she was lecturing at University of Nottingham. Hey, what have I done with my life? I just opened the movie. 22.5 lecturer. No, we are struggling. My generation, we are struggling. Things are hard for us. We need to commission of inquiry to understand why. Actually, some of the lecturers too are very, very abroad. Some departments in Legon, we are bright. They won't allow you to. But the second thing that traumatized me was I managed to get some galamsey in Takoradi. Right? I said, it didn't source. The thing that I convinced our madam to give me permission to go so that today, like BackPage, you won't see me on TV, Oh, and I'm on Pelboni. Adiana Basu. And this is me, So, I am happy to, God actually has a sense of humor, and that's why he makes things possible for us to meet every other weekend. My name is Caleb Kuda. It's always a pleasure coming your way with BackPage on City TV. On DSTV, the channel is 882. Guys, let's have fun. For the DSTV channel, no, it is 363. The radio is the 882. I know that many of you are struggling and also asking yourselves what you are doing with your lives, because people are having midlife crisis and all kinds of things. Some of you are 36, 35, and you are still living in your grandparents' homes. And people are asking you all kinds of vexatious questions. When are you getting married? When are you moving out of your grandfather's house to go and rent your own apartment? Yeah. Leave your grandfather's house to go and rent an apartment. Too much sense in one question. In fact, some people are neither adults nor teenagers. That's how your crisis is like. And I'm told that period of life is called waithood, because your life is basically at a bus stop. So the easy thing that many do is to save the little they have, borrow money, sell family property, and then give huge sums of money to agents to take them abroad. Often, our sisters, hey, I just sounded like a number 9. Our sisters, they choose the Gulf places, in the Gulf states. And then, yeah. But baby, anyway, cry.
A lot of problems. I can't even continue again. I'm tired of them. I can't.
When you say a lot of problems, give me an idea what those problems are.
Sexual harassment, no food, didn't sleep early, a lot. My bro, it's not easy.
A lot of you are saying sexual harassment. Give me, share your experience with me.
Sometimes, if you sleep, they will come, they'll say, wake up. I feel to sleep with you. If you did not allow them, they will beat you.
Very sad stories. I mean, very, very sad stories. And of all the about 263 returnees, yeah, from Lebanon in particular, I saw only 2 men. Only 2 men. Sister, you don't want to help her. Now, if you rush and go to Lebanon, if you're lucky and you return, your Lebanon may be none. If you go to Lebanon, your labor may be none of what agents are promising you. But that's not entirely the case all the time. One of the 2 men I saw tells me, if he hadn't left Ghana, nothing I get. Diana Wabrochua, Emma, Obio security, Etimichi and Emma fees, Momuya University now, Ususa and Kawa Ghana and County. Then I was
just say, Ohono, Sasika Minyano. $dollars and some send baby.
Well, I don't know what you're thinking. Ghana can really, really stress you out, but Charlie, in some way, I don't know what you're thinking in some way, but what gladdens my heart though is what some Ghanaian rich men and women did to bring our brothers and sisters who were stranded in Lebanon back home. Chief among them is Shiganers. Kennedy Japan. I met his son at the airport. Now, Brofobio Tugu Misono. Hey.
He's very happy as well too. He's actually taking it further. We actually started ordering sewing machines, hairdressing things, so that when the people come after the quarantine stuff, like the next step, because the thing is, if people come back home now, and then after the quarantine or after Corona, they want to go back, then it's the same cycle all over again. So with his help, again, with his initiative and others as well that have been calling and said, oh, they want to help, like, okay, when the ladies are out, how they can help them start having income and being employed in Ghana as well.
I don't even know how to do that one, but this one is high grade. But obviously, I like the plans that the father has. I mean, it's impressive, isn't it? Yeah, Shiganers, together with his friends, raised like $8,650 to help bring our fellow Ghanaians home. I know you are saying, God, please, this is why I've been saying, bless me, so that me too, but you, God knows you. No, but it will happen. I chanced on the ceremony where Shiganers was presenting the cash donations to bring home our Lebanon returnees, right? Now, I want to show you, pay attention to the applause that greeted the cash donations. Pay attention.
This $50,000 was given to me by Special Ice. Oh, okay. Special Ice and Despite. The two friends gave $50,000. Honorable Alex Markin and my Chinese partner. Alex Markin gave $30,000. My partner Chinese gave $20,000. Your former minister, I think Obindapa, also gave us $1,000 this afternoon.
Did you hear that? $50,000. $2,000. Total silence. Please, if you are the one who sends the 2K without getting any applause, please, you can visit me with it to understand. I will give you a Pentecostal clap offering. I promise. I'm just not sure if presenting the cash like that, like loaves of bread, is. I don't really know. Huge sums of money, but I don't know. I'm not even in this alone. I'm not even in it to be worried about it. I don't know. But this is great, really. More so because some investments will be made to equip the returnees with some skills, you know. I thought that's great. By the way, it's illegal to travel to the Gulf states to go do domestic stuff. Like Prapra gardens, it's illegal. And over here, it's illegal for foreigners to do retail stuff. And so if you go to Tiptoe Lane, somebody can say, butu, and easy. Let's cross over to Tiptoe Lane. Correspondent is there, see something.
Leave him. You give it to shop.
Yeah, anybody and so the money no day. I read come. It'll be easy. But you should know that money no day. Because my whole life I've never seen parents of wards in schools like Morning Star, Ridge Church School, you know, mass around the school. Like we no go pay, we no go green, we no. Charlie, boys are bleeding. They are bleeding brutally.
I mean, it's an eyesore. How can you tell a parent who is paying almost 3,000 that you are giving a discount of 125 Ghana cedis? That is what we don't understand.
We are all bleeding, my brother. We are bleeding and breathing. When I was listening to the parents complain on the City Breakfast show, I went into trance again. Like, KG1 pupil. And the school fees is 3,000 Ghana cedis for one term. KG1, 3K. KG1, 3K. Hey, seriously. Abusa Penny is looking for just 500 Ghana from the whole family just to top up and pay bride price and no cross stay. 3,000. KG1, one term. Hey, poverty is no good. But that is not an excuse. Ghana police is not an excuse for you to be taking firewood, bags of pure water, and other things from motorists in the name of routine checks. Some say a police officer was he stopped. Someone said a police officer stopped him somewhere around Medina, and when he stopped there, he just stretches his hand. So one day he just folded lotto paper very nice and then put it in the hand of the police. Say, carry on. What kind of disrespect is this? Lotto paper. This is pure disrespect for the police service. Lotto paper, I mean now. At least you could have dropped a used chewing gum wrapper, you know, and then, but lotto paper there. Ghana police was shout. Ghana police was shout. Ghana police anyebo. Ghana police feature. In fact, I have a song dedication for you, all of you. Enjoy. To be honest, we've prayed, but this one city thing there is not getting better. Yeah, it's not getting better. We have migrated from one city to accepting mobile money, firewood, and even, this one is hard for me to say, but I'm told the last time police stopped somebody and he said, oh, so many people said, what is that? He says P2. He said, what's P2? He said, Postino 2. He said, oh, it's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. They're even taking contraceptives as bribe. Ghana police. Why? Anyway, Stoneboy, because we have been praying with your song, one of your die-hard fans says I should tell you that, this one, let me say it in the Togo, ya ye bavunyanya majeo ta jagbagbana na jujo bavunyanya na jafomo. You understand? You understand? It's not for you. But Joe Matthew, his geometry is solid. Just a trapezium, no. My God. Apparently, when he wrote Bonon, Charlie, he had divided attention. We just discovered where the attention was going. Geometry, your patience has paid off. Orokodo Nyankwada. Now we understand you when you sing I Can't Breathe Without You. Take it easy, bro. You need to breathe some more. You will need to breathe so that our generation will be blessed with more songs. Congratulations. When we return, we will, let me ask you, how do you call your granny? You say Sisi or Enu or Grandma or something? I don't know, but Sisi Riadapa, Enu Sisi Riadapa, Grandma Sisi Ria. What do you know about what so? She says Accra is neat, briefly.
Whoa, what's going on, baby?
Have you heard of Wheel of Fortune?
No, what's that?
Register on betplanet.com.gh. Select Wheel of Fortune and win a prize.
What? Wait, I'm just gonna win a prize because I'm new?
Yes, but to win a prize, you only deposit 10 Ghana cedi.
Before I win, I have to pay?
Really? So you're comparing 10 Ghana cedi to an iPhone, an iPad, 25,000 Ghana cedi. Eh? Okay, then spin.
Yes!
Babe, we are ready. We are ready.
So welcome back. I hear the sanitation minister says Accra is now 85% clean. Yeah, and I'll get there soon. Before then, something funny happened. I'll tell you soon, but watch this. With a 5 Ghana cedi rate, the gates of Abri Botanical Gardens were open to me. The imposing Royal Palm Avenue Crescent serenaded me as it did other tourists. I was pleasantly surprised to find several others who arrived ahead of me, like this Chinese family determined to strike all the right poses and create memories of a lifetime. Fellow Ghanaians, that is Abri Botanical Gardens. Naturally beautiful and administratively, I don't know, I don't want to say it's incompetently administrated, no, I can't say that, but yes, you understand. I pray that we don't get to the point where we give to the Chinese to manage because you dear, it's okay. But you know, I was lying on some well-manicured lawns. As for that one, I have to give it to them. The place is really green, and they manicured the place so well. It must be a lot of work. I thought that was a good job. And because there was no toilet, I was made the idea saying when I make a book, not just a major mahomia kakra. I made too many akosha sister bina. You know, there's a shrub there, so she thought that, you know, she's hiding from God. So me too, I was lying somewhere. I took my hand down, and somebody ran over there. Jesus! She was removing her. I go to my head, but away. You know, she had unzipped and she began helping herself. It was some way, seriously. And look, you can't fix your urinal, you can't fix your washroom. The place is locked, and the manhole Matisa has been full for months. Like, why? I don't understand. Like, how? By all means, the sanitation situation at Ebrino, it must improve. And we are demanding that one now, at once by force. Okay? The structures that were built there in 1925, nothing. The oldest tree there, 600 years old, it has fallen by the grace of God. Now, who is planting the next tree? Because I understand that Sir Gordon Gottisberg planted another tree, is the Onyamidria here, the same one, the one that was 600 old. He has planted one, and he planted in 1925. Who is planting the next tree? The royal palm crescent that looks so beautiful. It's all going to die very soon. Who's thinking about it? And the funny thing is, while I was there, I'm taking it easy with you. I want to be friends with you. I'm taking it very easy with you. While I was there, I was reading a chapter of Rollins's book. Let me bring it. Mr. Rollins's book. They're working with Rollins now. This one. I was reading it. Then I got to a place, I think page 22 something. There's a guy called S.K. Gbogbo. According to the book, if the author is lying, me too, I'm lying. This S.K. Gbogbo was supposed to be the chief parks and gardens officer and a revered bushman. To say, when it comes to Batashi, yes, I dream. So he slept through a cabinet meeting when Professor Hoy was giving updates on the local government sector, and a question was fired about why children go to visit Ebri Botanical Gardens without being issued receipts. And Mr. Gbogbo, according to Professor Hoy, suddenly woke up and shouted, Madam, this one there is not parks and gardens alone. Every department, they are corrupt. Was every department, they take bribe. Now, guess what? Chairman Rawlings was right there in that meeting. And I'll tell you what happened. He told Professor Hoy to meet him at the Parks and Gardens the next day, you know, at 8 a.m. He got there and Chairman Rawlings was there. And together, they and the staff waited from 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. before seeing Mr. Gbogbo appear, walking like a pendulum. According to the book, when he saw Jerry, he said, "Hey, Jerry, you have come to visit us, eh?" Booze can give you confidence. Guess what happened to Mr. Gbogbo? Should I tell you? 150 Ghana, go and buy your own. And then you will see what happened to you. But to be honest, Ebri is nice. The botanical gardens, sweet. If you thought the lockdown period would be used to renovate parts of the garden, you would be disappointed. But if you love the lush green lawns, you will be excited to have your picnics here. Except that, should you have a stomach upset, the washrooms here are not functioning. But this alluring pergola, otherwise called Lover's Lane, will certainly make for a good walk with that special someone. No, I thought that place is sweet. Now, I want to encourage as many to visit the Ebri Botanical Gardens of our world, the Kecha beaches, lagoons, the Nzula zones, and other tourist attractions dotted across the country. I saw more Abrofo than fellow Ghanaians at Ebri. Fellow Ghanaians want to know No, let's try and visit and explore. But it's a shame that common toilets no day Ebri. When you go there, It's a matter. You have to fix the toilet. Turret, you fix it. Now when you go there and they fix it, holler me, I'll come. And I want to, I'll make noise about it. But when you go, eat in moderation because you come say who? So that's our brief for you. One of our very, very finest, our very best. No turrets. Otherwise, very beautiful place. Now, another of our very, very best, Kwame Nkrumah's Tema, is getting rotten and sinking straight into fecal matter. Fecal matter now, but if you bring it to your local language, na ba fecal matter I can't hear you. What did you say? Fecal matter. Mata fish.
You're fresher. Okay, go woman no down. Oguni obudum oguni ne fie. Onyakura. Feeling onyakura.
Fellow Ghanaians, honorable outgoing MP, I'm saying this is abuse.
What do you mean by abuse? What do you mean by abuse? What do you mean by abuse?
Oh, please, don't be doing that, please. Come.
What do you mean by abuse?
He lost his primaries. Yeah, let's go.
Well, it's very bad, and for health-wise, it's affecting a lot of typhoid and other stuff. It's very bad here.
You get those kind of cases?
Yeah, I've even had typhoid before recently.
You know that thing we do as MCs and moderators after reading the profiles of chairpersons of an occasion, then we say, Mr. Chairman, your audience, your chairman. You know that thing, right? Good. So, Tema 4, your turret, Tema 4.
Chachi malachiamu kaka no 2 weeks enako. Achiako vatrolaka. Never in a hand of him, me masagom.
Kari. No, bona like you wanna.
Bona bangika abamichiena.
Era funa.
Era na funa la ba mi ngudu do drama fie. Na la na mama la fine. Na move no va pe ko mo gata no